MMA fans certainly enjoy a good knockout. There's something about that intense moment where the true power and technique of these combatants come together for a truly breathtaking scene that leaves fans on the edge of their seats. Here's a list of some of the most spectacular knockouts in recent history, showcasing the raw power and talents of the world's most dangerous mixed martial arts competitors. So, let's begin today's video. Number 1. Conor McGregor vs. Jose Aldo. Conor McGregor's knockout of former UFC featherweight champion Jose Aldo is one of the best in the history of knockouts. The Irishman defeated his Brazilian opponent in just 13 seconds during his first ever title match inside the octagon. The Brazilian had not lost a fight inside the cage for 10 years prior to that day at UFC 194, which took place on December 13, 2015, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. As the fight began, McGregor appeared relatively comfortable, while Aldo appeared to be feeling the heat of the fans yelling for his head at the MGM Grand. As the Irishman had correctly predicted at a press conference prior to the fight, Aldo overstretched his right hand as McGregor counterpunched with razor-sharp precision, his knuckles crunching on Aldo's temple as the former champ went down, resulting in the beginning of the McGregor era in the UFC. Number 2. Chan Sung Jung vs. Yair Rodriguez. Chan Sung Jung and Yair Rodriguez indulged in an all-out war in the main event of UFC Fight Night, Korean Zombie vs. Rodriguez, back in November 2018. As the highly competitive fight moved into its 5th round, Rodriguez was down on the scorecards and heading toward his second straight loss inside the cage. But in the closing seconds of the final round, Rodriguez pulled off a miraculous move by throwing an elbow strike that was so impressive it instantly knocked out Jung. Everyone went into an uproar as Jung collapsed into the mat. Number 3. Ben Askren vs. Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal's resurrection was finally complete as the former top contender for the UFC welterweight title fought former ONE FC champion Ben Askren in the main event of UFC 239. In the middle of the octagon, Street Jesus needed just 5 seconds to completely take out the former Olympian. Masvidal ran straight at a bent-over Askren, who was possibly aiming for a single-leg takedown, and delivered a massive flying knee into Ben Askren's face, leaving Funky sleeping inside the cage. However, that was not the end of the fight. Askren was knocked out cold by Gamebred after he delivered a few more super necessary strikes to him. Number 4. Francis Ngannou vs. Alistar Overeem. When Francis Ngannou got his hands on Alistar Overeem at UFC 218, it wasn't unusual for him to suffer a UFC knockout. In the octagon, it had already occurred 4 times before, with a few of them being especially notable. But none of them gave you the exact same chill of fear down your spine as this one. The uppercut Ngannou delivered that night appeared to have the might of Mjolnir behind it. No matter how many times you watch it, part of you has to be amazed that the Demolition Man's head stayed attached to his body. In his journey to become the UFC heavyweight champion, the Predator has experienced many stunning knockouts, but none quite as terrifying as this one. Number 5. Dan Henderson vs. Michael Bisping. When the two faced off inside the octagon at UFC 100, former middleweight champion Michael Bisping was completely knocked out by Dan Henderson's right hand, which is no less than a sledgehammer. Henderson feigned a jab before landing a straight right that sent the Brit's head flying off to the floor in one of the most brutal knockouts in UFC history. Hendo wasn't done yet. Subsequently, he pounced on the ground and delivered one of the most terrifying knockouts ever by striking Bisping in the jaw with a flying forearm. Henderson later told Joe Rogan during the post-fight interview that he followed up the initial KO with a flying forearm as Bisping went to the ground to shut him up. Number 6. Anderson Silva vs. Vitor Belfort. In Anderson Silva vs. Vitor Belfort at UFC 126, we were all going to receive what we had long wanted. Yes, it's an opponent for the Spider, who was equal in terms of striking for him. Silva had faced some serious strikers previously, but Belfort was a wrecking machine with the power to actually put fear in Silva's heart. Or so we thought. A little more than a minute into the fight, the then middleweight champion delivered a front kick that would go down in history as one of his career highlights. He not only won a UFC match with a method rarely used successfully in the sport, but he did so in a title fight against a man considered to be a striker as he was. It was the moment Silva went from being just a champion to an MMA legend. Finally, mixed martial arts has offered fans with several memorable moments over the years. From jaw-dropping submissions to lightning-fast knockouts, there's no shortage of excitement inside the octagon. These battles not only display the athlete's extraordinary strength and skill, but they also have a profound effect on both the victor and the defeated. So what are your thoughts about today's video? Don't forget to include all of those in the comments section below.